Joe Burrow. This guy is playing out of his mind right now. He's putting up crazy numbers, and it looks like he's on track for a historic season. But his team isn't exactly following suit. The Bengals are 5-8 right now. And to make matters worse, Burrow just popped up on the injury report with a knee problem.
Yeah, it's tough to see. You've got a quarterback playing like an MVP candidate. He's leading the league in touchdowns, but his team can't seem to get it together. It really shows you how complex football can be. Just because one guy is playing lights out doesn't mean the team is going to find success.
So let's talk about this knee injury. How concerned should we be? He was limited in practice, which on the surface seems like a good sign, but it's definitely something to keep an eye on.
You know, right after that Monday Night Football game against the Cowboys, Burrow said his knee felt fine, but now he's on the injury report. So something's up, even if they're just being cautious.
And this just adds another layer to what's already been a strange season for the Bengals. I mean, their offense is explosive. Burrow, Chase, Higgins, they can score on anybody.
Yeah.
But their defense is another story.
Totally. Their defense has been letting them down all year. They're giving up a ton of points, which puts so much pressure on Burrow and the offense to keep up. It's just not sustainable.
And speaking of Burrow's performance, it's been incredible. He's not just leading in touchdowns, he's second in QBR, which, if you don't know, is a much better way to evaluate quarterbacks than the basic passer rating. It looks at sacks, interceptions, gives you a much more complete picture. And he's also third in passing yards. The guy's doing it all.
And let's not forget Jamar Chase. It looks like he might win the Triple Crown this year: most catches, receiving yards, and receiving touchdowns. That connection he has with Burrow going all the way back to LSU is really something special. It's like they can read each other's minds on the field.
It's amazing to watch, but it makes you wonder, is all this individual talent going to waste if they can't make the playoffs?
That's the big question, isn't it? It's like watching a world-class musician playing a beautiful piece on a sinking ship. You can enjoy the performance, but in the back of your mind, you're thinking, what's the point?
Well, let's look at their remaining schedule. They've got the Titans, Browns, Broncos, and Steelers. Not easy, but not impossible.
The Titans and Browns, those are definitely winnable games on paper, but anything can happen in the NFL. And don't count out the Broncos. They've been playing really well lately.
And then there's the Steelers. Even if they're out of the playoff race, you know they would love to ruin the Bengals season.
Oh yeah, those rivalry games always have a little extra intensity no matter what the standings are. You can throw the records out the window when these two teams play.
The Bengals are definitely in win-now mode. Their core players are young and talented, but you never know what the future holds. This opportunity might not last forever, so the stakes are pretty high.
Absolutely. They've invested a lot in Burrow, Chase, and Higgins. They've built the entire team around them, and now they're at a turning point. Can they fix their defense? Can Burrow stay healthy? Can they make a run in the playoffs? Those are the questions that will determine how this season goes.
Which leads us right back to that big question. Should Burrow play through the pain and risk making the injury worse? Or should he sit out and focus on his long-term health?
Now, this is where it gets really interesting. It's a huge decision, not just for this season, but for Burrow's career and the future of the Bengals. On the one hand, he's an incredibly talented quarterback playing at an amazing level, but they have to think about what happens if the injury gets worse and it affects him long term. If he does play, it at least gives the Bengals a chance. I mean, even if it's a slim chance, he's the engine that makes their offense go. Take him out of the equation and their playoff hopes pretty much disappear.
But realistically, their chances are already slim as it is. So is it worth it for Burrow to risk hurting his knee even more, potentially messing up his whole career just for a shot at the playoffs that might not even happen?
That's the dilemma. Trying to figure out the risk versus the reward is complicated. You've got to consider how bad the injury actually is, how much pain he can handle, if there are treatments that can help, and then the big one, what happens if he keeps playing hurt?
We've seen quarterbacks try to play through injuries before. Sometimes it works out great. Other times it's a disaster. It shows how competitive these guys are, how they don't want to let their teammates down. But you have to wonder if sometimes the best thing to do is just focus on the long term.
Remember RG3? He was so talented, a real game changer. But he played on that hurt knee in the playoffs, and it ruined his career. It's a tough lesson about what can happen when you don't listen to your body.
It's got to be tough for Burrow. He's a competitor. Of course he wants to be out there with his guys, but he needs to think smart. Think about the bigger picture. You only get one career.
The Bengals have a big decision to make here, too. They need to protect their quarterback, even if it means they might not make the playoffs. He's their most important player. They have to look out for him.
It's easy for us to sit here and say he should play or he should sit. We're not the ones dealing with the pain and the pressure. In the end, it's up to Burrow and the team doctors to make the call.
This whole thing makes you think about how we view playing through pain in pro sports. We love the toughness, the guys who play hurt, but we forget sometimes that these are real people. They're not superheroes.
It's a balancing act. We admire that toughness, but we also have to make sure they are safe. Athletes need to feel like they can be honest about injuries. They shouldn't feel forced to play hurt.
The NFL has done a better job with concussions and things like that, but there's still a long way to go when it comes to dealing with pain and injuries. It's not just the physical part either. The mental stress of playing hurt can really affect a player too.
Let's talk about the Bengals and this win-now mentality. They were built to win now. This offense is young and explosive. They've shown they could be great, but can they overcome their problems on defense and actually make a real run?
The defense is the key. If they can start getting to the quarterback, forcing turnovers, and preventing big plays, then they've got a shot. But that's a big if, especially with who they have left to play.
Let's break down these matchups. You've got the Titans, always a tough team, especially with Derrick Henry running the ball. The Browns can be up and down, but they're dangerous. The Broncos are hot right now, and they'd love to beat a team like the Bengals.
And of course, the Steelers. You never know what's going to happen in a division game. Plus, the Steelers have nothing to lose. I bet they would love to be the ones to end the Bengals season.
It's a tough schedule, and even if Burrow does play, there's no guarantee they will win.
Exactly. Everyone has to contribute, not just the big names. The defense needs to play better. Special teams needs to be solid. They have to stop making mistakes. It takes everybody.
This Bengals season has been wild. Big wins, tough losses, and now this injury situation with Burrow. It shows you that in sports, just like in life, you can't predict what's going to happen.
The Bengals are at a crossroads. They've got some big decisions to make. Decisions that will affect this season and probably their future too. It's an interesting situation. It shows how difficult it can be to build a winning team in pro sports. You have to take risks, but also be smart.
So where does this leave Joe Burrow? What should he do? There's a lot riding on this decision. Let's try to understand the situation from all sides.
This could be a defining moment in his career. Think about it. If he plays and takes the Bengals to the playoffs, people will talk about it forever. It'll be a legendary story about how tough he is. But if he gets hurt worse and it ruins his career, it becomes a warning to other players.
And it's not just him. The Bengals' whole future is tied to this. They put everything into building around him. If he's not healthy, their hopes of winning a Super Bowl could be gone for years.
Can you imagine the pressure he must feel? The whole city is counting on him. He wants to play, but his knee is hurt. This is a tough situation, a real test of his character.
This is where Burrow and the Bengals need to show some leadership. They have to talk honestly, look at the pros and cons, and then make the decision that's best for everyone.
It's a delicate balance. You want to win, but you also have to be smart. It's like a chess game with huge stakes.
Okay, but let's say he decides to sit out. What does that say to his teammates, the fans, the organization?
Some people might think he's not tough enough, that he's letting them down, but others might see it as the right thing to do. Like he's putting his health first, which is smart in the long run.
It could divide the locker room. Maybe some guys feel like he's abandoning them. Or maybe it sets a good example. Like it shows that the team cares about the players and their health.
Either way, it's a risk. There's no perfect answer. It comes down to trust, communication, and understanding the bigger picture.
And this is something we all deal with in life, not just sports. Trying to balance what we want to achieve with taking care of ourselves, making tough choices when we don't have all the answers, trying to figure out what risks are worth taking.
It reminds you that even the best athletes in the world are still human. They get hurt, they make mistakes. Sometimes the smart move is to just step back and focus on what's important.
So while we wait to see what Burrow decides, let's try to appreciate how hard this must be for him. This isn't just a story in the news, it's his life.
No matter what he chooses, it's his call. We can talk about it all we want, but in the end, we have to respect his decision.
This story isn't over yet. It'll be interesting to see what happens next. There's so much drama and we still don't know how it's going to end. It reminds you that sports can be a lot like real life. You never know what's going to happen next.
Goodbye, and see you in the next video.